Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Stemp, and today we are going to be ranking the Radiohead albums from worst to best. I'm doing this in a tier list format because that's the easiest way to go about it. So yeah, I'm gonna go in order of release to try and be able to talk about them each a little bit. And yeah, I think I've covered the band enough and talked about the band enough and listened to the band enough to know kind of how I feel about this. I'm going to rank it in terms of my personal enjoyment, not like what I think is, like, I'm going to rank it on what I think is best rather than like, I don't know, what's musically the best, I guess. So, yeah. So we're going to go in order, starting with the creepy baby faced Pablo Honey. I think everybody knows where I'm going to put this. It's just the great. No, it's not very good. It's not terrible, but it's not really what I look for when I want to listen to Radiohead, I guess. It's just not an album that I listen to ever. I've maybe listened to it like 3 times. I've never been in a mood where I'm like, hey, yo, throw in Pablo Honey. That's not a thing. It does have some okay tracks on it. Anyone Can Play Guitar and Creep is obviously huge. You probably thought I was going to put it in C for Creep, but no. Yeah, it's whatever. It's my least favorite Radiohead album. I don't enjoy it very much. Yeah, so. Anyways, yeah. I don't think there's much to say about that one. I think most people agree that they don't really like this one. It's a fine, like, alt-rock album, but it's not what I want to listen to Radiohead for. Oh, fuck. Okay. The Bends. I love the Bends. I didn't listen to it a lot when I first started listening to the band because I thought anything pre-OK Computer was like, sounded like Pablo Honey. And I was wrong. The Benz is great. It's probably one of my most listened to albums from them this year. I like it a lot. I don't think it's necessarily A or S, but it is a solid album. I think B tier is appropriate for it. It's good. I like it a lot. I think it's great. I love My Iron Lung. Street Spirit is great. Just is one of my personal favorites off this album, and the music video is really cool too. So I mean, that's a pro, I guess. Yeah. There is not too much to say about that album though, as I feel like I think it speaks for itself. It's a solid album. Nothing crazy, but it's good. Yeah, Bulletproof, I Wish I Was. There's a lot of really good tracks on here. Fake Plastic Trees, how could I forget that? Great. Good album. Very solid. I enjoy it. Next up is OK Computer. This is probably the band's biggest album, I'd say. OK Computer and Kid A are usually interchangeable in a lot of lists. And I love OK Computer. I think it's a really solid album. It's probably the second album that I listened to. I think the first album I heard was In Rainbows. But I've heard the tracks over time from OK Computer. Karma Police and No Surprises I've definitely heard before I started listening to the band. But it's a great album. I think it's a really solid example of what Radiohead is, and I think that it is sort of the quintessential album for Radiohead. It's the one that probably got them biggest out of all of them, and is just an overall like 10 out of 10 album. Like it's a really good album. There's no denying that, but it's not my personal favorite. There are other albums that I like more than this one, but I always find myself coming back to this album. I think it's a really good one. So I'm going to put it in A because that's my personal opinion. I think it's a 10 out of 10 album. Don't get me wrong, but I personally don't listen to it as much as I listen to some other ones. So yeah, anyways, Kid A. I think most people, if you're from this channel, know my opinion on this one. It's my favorite Radiohead album of all time. There's no doubting that. I love Kid A. Made a whole series on it. Talked about it a lot. Made a bunch of Kid Amnesia videos, and I love Kid A. I love it. I love its unique sound. I love the floaty, dreamy like feeling that it gives. It's just this beautiful album that I can't. I made a whole video or a whole video series trying to analyze it, and I still can't really put what I feel about the album into words. It's something that you just need to listen to, and it is in my head. That's what Radiohead is to me, is Kid A. I love that album so much. It's so good. I'm not gonna sit here and praise it forever, but it's good. It's really good album. So yeah. Next up, Amnesiac. This might be a surprise considering I have covered this one before. I do enjoy this album, but I do think there are some problems with it, which is going to make me rank it a little bit lower. It is a solid album. It's a good album. I enjoy a lot of the tracks off of it more than I probably do some other Radiohead's albums. Like, how am I trying to say this? I enjoy some of the tracks off of this album more than I enjoy tracks off of other albums. I think Pyramid Song, Knives Out, I Might Be Wrong, Life in a Glass House are like some of the greatest Radiohead tracks, but I can't help but feel that this album does have a lot of B-side type material. I don't want to be the guy who calls Amnesiac a B-side, because it really isn't. It does have a lot of genuinely amazing songs that I feel like did deserve their own album. But I don't know. Tracks like Polk Pole and Hunting Bears and Morning Bell / Amnesiac feel like, I don't know, they feel wrong. They don't feel like they belong in the album. I feel like I like Polk Pole. I just think it's too long, and I don't hate Hunting Bears, but I feel like it doesn't need to be there. And I think there's some really solid B-sides from this era. Not songs that ended up on Kid Amnesia. I'm talking about like actual B-sides like Worry Wart and the original version of Fog, Amazing Sounds of Orgy, all these tracks that are amazing, that just didn't end up on this album. And I feel like they had a better place there than some of the songs that are on this album. So it just makes me kind of annoyed more than anything, but it's a good album. I don't hate it. I just think there are definitely some problems that could be resolved, but I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna say that I like it more than the Bends. So yeah, I'm gonna order the individual tiers as well. Hail to the Thief. I love Hail to the Thief. I think it's a really solid album. I think it's maybe a little too long in terms of track listing. And I know that the band, or Tom at least, came out and said, like, he wishes it was shorter, and like gave an alternate track list that got rid of a couple of songs and stuff. But I'm just ranking the album as it is. It has some of my favorite Radiohead songs on it. There is probably a top 3 song for me. And 2 + 2 is 5 was like my most listened to song in 2020, I believe. Like 2 years ago or so. Holy shit, what the fuck? Anyways, yeah, it's a solid album. I really do enjoy it. I think Wolf at the Door, They're There, Go to Sleep, 2+2, Sail to the Moon. There's some really, really solid tracks on here. Mixomatosis is one of my personal favorites off this one. But I do think it suffers a similar fate of Amnesiac, where the order just seems a little weird officially. But I will say that it is a really solid album, and I think it's a sort of like an OK Computer 2 in a way, because they took elements from Kid A and morphed it with their sort of older sounding music, like from OK Computer, and made this sort of combo album. I think it works really well. I think it's top of B tier there for me. I like it a lot. It's very, 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 very solid. In Rainbows, I think it's pretty universal that this is one of the best Radiohead albums, and I agree. I think it's probably one of the ones that I listen to the most. So I think, it's going up here, but I don't think it's quite in my S tier. I just don't. Because it has Fosdarp. That's it. I don't really like Fosdarp that much. I'm not going to lie. I don't know why I don't really like that track. It's just a track that I can't seem to enjoy that much. It's not a bad track. It's just I always find myself skipping it. And because of that, I can't say that it's a perfect album. So, yeah. but besides that, I think it's a really, really solid album. I think it's probably one of their best. I do think it's better than OK Computer, in my opinion, just because it's so polished. It's very well put together. But yeah, there's not much I can say about In Rainbows. It is a really solid album. And I think it definitely deserves the spot that it's usually given on tier lists and everything. It is a top tier album for sure. King of Limbs. Yeah. King of Limbs is very controversial, I guess. It's probably the most split album out of all of Radiohead's discography after like Pablo Honey. But I really like it. I like it a lot. The only issue is I don't like it as much as some of the other albums. So I think it's kind of going to sit in C, because it's just not quite there for me. There are some really, really, really solid tracks off of King of Limbs. I love Bloom. I love every version of Bloom that exists. The one with like Hans Zimmer is awesome. Feral is one of my favorite sort of like instrumentally type tracks. There's a couple of those in the discography. There are lyrics, but it's like little mumbled words. Lotus Flower is great. That music video, solid. It's a good album. I like it, but I don't think it sits closer to the other albums for me. Just because I think that the In the Basement version is or From the Basement is miles better than the studio version of the album, which I think a lot of people agree with. It's a really, really great live performance. And I think that the studio album doesn't quite capture that magic, but it's still good. I still listen to it pretty frequently. And on to the newest of them all, A Moon-Shaped Pool. I started listening to Radiohead around the time that Moon-Shaped Pool and OK Not OK came out. And So listening to Moonshaped Pool was something that I didn't do for a little bit, because it was their newest album, and I was under the assumption that, like, I don't know, that their new albums weren't as good or something. But when I did listen to it, is one of the only albums that I've listened to that are really just like it's so beautiful. It is such a beautiful album, and it shows the progression of the band, that I feel like none of the other albums really capture, obviously, as they're earlier in their discography. I feel like this one is sort of a culmination of everything that they've learned. There's, elements from OK Computer and Kid A and In Rainbows and from all over the place, sort of smashed together, and it's like the best of the best. It's just a perfect album in my eyes. It's beautiful. I personally like Kid A more, but I think Moonshaped Pool deserves the S spot just as much as Kid A. Full Stop is one of my favorite. Is another top 3 Radiohead track along with In Limbo from Kid A. It's just, that whole album is great. Daydreaming, Burn the Witch. I mean, literally everything off of Moonshaped Pool, besides Tinker Tailor. I don't really like Tinker Tailor that much, but it's all right. The rest of them, though, solid, amazing tracks. Worth my time, worth your time. It's a great album. Yeah. So this is my list. I know it looks scuffed, and that's because it's like stretched to fit the screen there. You can maybe that would have been better to record it as, but whatever. Yeah, so this is my tier list. Let me know what or how you rank the albums in the comments below. Yeah, have a great day, guys. This has been Stemp. Thank you for watching.